Hello, Life Point Church. I'm excited to be here again with you this week. I hope that you've enjoyed the lessons over the last few weeks and that you were encouraged by those, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And some of the things that were brought out in those lessons over the last couple of weeks were really interesting and encouraging to me. Maybe it's sad, I don't know what you would label it as, but it's encouraging to know that God uses people with failures because we all have failed, we all have made mistakes. So it's encouraging to see that God will use us in spite of those things, and He will go around all of those things to do what He wants to do. So this week we're going to be kicking off a new series. It's called Pleasing God, and today we're going to start with lesson 3.1, which is, what does God require? What does He require of us? So if you would look at a business plan, if you say maybe this business is to manufacture some type of good or to provide some kind of service, there's a goal that business should have, and that goal should be to make the consumer happy and like their product and want their product or their service. It's not so much geared to you as the business owner saying, well, I really like this thing, or I really like the way that this is, so I'm going to market it and it's going to be awesome. It's important to figure out what your consumer wants, what they're looking for. And unfortunately, we've probably all seen times where a business has started and maybe it was like really doing well kind of at the beginning because everybody was interested in it, the marketing was really great, whatever, got a lot of attention. But after time, the consumer's saying, I don't really like the product. I don't really like the service that's provided. And it waned off, and the business, unfortunately, would fail. So we can kind of see that, and maybe, being on the outside, we can see that a little bit more clearly and say, well, I wouldn't do that or whatever. But then on the flip side, when you look at our walk with God, it's extremely important that we do not fail at pleasing God. We do not fail at doing what God requires of us. So this week and through the remainder of this series, we're going to be focusing on one specific verse in Micah. And to kind of preface that, it's important for us to know the context of this verse and the context of what was going on around Micah at the time of this verse and his prophecies. So if you look at Micah, he was one of the contemporaries of Isaiah, Amos, Hosea, and he was used in kind of a dual role by God where he prophesied against what was going on at the time, and he was actually the first prophet to prophesy of the downfall and the destruction of Jerusalem. But he was also used to kind of encourage and to provide guidance on what would bring restoration. So it wasn't just all the doom and gloom and this is the terrible things that are going to happen, but there was also the other side of that where God would say through Micah, this is what can be done to bring restoration. This is what can be done to please me and bring things back around. So we see that Micah's audience at the time was Judah and, kind of the leadership mostly of Judah, both religious and in the governmental sense, so the kings at the time and all of that. And so obviously his prophecies often were not really well accepted. He'd prophesy against what some of the kings were doing, and he prophesied during the reign of 4 different kings. And some of those kings were completely against what God wanted, and at least one of them was trying to bring Judah back to revival. But we would see that this was a time of public profession of obedience to God. So it was kind of popular at the time, and it was important at the time to profess this obedience for God. But at the same time, there were also groves around the area that would hide idolatry. And it would be places of idol worship and these things kind of going on behind the scenes that Micah would prophesy about. So we see that God used Micah for kind of different aspects here. And what we're going to focus on through this week is the instruction regarding how that restoration would happen. If we go to Micah 6:8, and this is going to be the main scripture for this series, it says, "He hath showed me, O man, what is good and what the Lord does require of thee." What does the Lord require of thee? But to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. That is what God requires of us, and we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper this week and through the remainder of this series. I hope that you all have a blessed rest of your day, and you will join us back again here tomorrow.